So in this video, we're going to look at solving equations, and in those equations, we're going to have a proportion. So what is a proportion? And we can actually define it pretty easily in this case. We can say a single fraction, so one fraction, equal to another fraction. So if one fraction is equal to one fraction, we would consider that a proportion, at least in this case. So now, here's what that would look like for us doing an actual problem. So an actual problem is going to look like this. Let's say I have x over 4 equals 3 over 2. And my job is to figure out what is x. So you could do this a couple different ways. Like some people would just guess numbers to put in, plug in for x. But there's actually a process we can follow. A really easy go-to process for this is to cross multiply. So if you see a proportion, you want to cross multiply, which means take the top of the first fraction times the bottom of the second fraction. So that would give us 2 times x, which is 2x. Then you're going to bring down your equal sign, and now you're going to multiply the bottom of the first fraction times the top of the second. So 4 times 3, and I'll even write it out for you so you can see. And now you can see we've gotten rid of our fractions, and now this is just a problem or an equation we can solve. We can say 2x equals 12. Then I can divide by 2, and now I know x equals 6. And if we were to plug x back into the problem, it would work. All right, so your job is to cross multiply first, and then from there it's pretty much solving an equation. So let's do another one. That way you can actually see a couple different variations. Because this variation is one that gives people trouble. But after we do it, I'll give you a few tricks, or I guess as we do it, I'll give you a few tricks to try to use to help yourself out. So once again, is this a proportion? Well, yeah, there's one fraction, 4 over n plus 9. And then here's our second fraction, 2 over 7. So if we have a proportion, we can just cross multiply. And that's going to get rid of my fractions. So that means I'm going to take 4 times 7. So 4 times 7, which I won't bore you to death. I think we all can do that in our head and say 28. So 28 is going to equal. Now, here's where the confusion happens. When I multiply n plus 2, a lot of people are thinking, well, how am I supposed to take n plus 2 times 2? And here's an easy trick to help yourself out. If you have any plus or minus signs on the bottom or like 2 terms on the bottom, put that in parentheses and then write out the multiplication. So the multiplication is going to look like this. When I rewrite this, I want to put 2 in the front. I want to put a parentheses, and then I want to put n plus 9 in the parentheses. Because now if I said, do this and simplify this, a ton of us would be able to say, well, now I'm just going to distribute. Okay, so the trick is put this 2-term denominator in parentheses and then stick your single number in front and keep your parentheses, and then you'll know to distribute. So now we'll distribute 2 to n and 2 to 9. So 28 equals 2n plus 18. So we've distributed. Now we're just going to solve this. We're going to isolate n by subtracting 18. 10 equals 2n. And now hopefully we'd be good to divide this 2. So 5 is going to equal n, which means our solution to this problem would be 5. All right, now let's do one more just because I've seen a couple people get to these type of problems and they get really wigged out by it, but let's just look at it real quick. So let's say I had n plus 8 over 5 equal to n minus 1 over 2. Now, once again, do I have a single fraction on either side? Is this problem a proportion? And yeah, because this is a single fraction on the left, single fraction on the right, so I can cross multiply. Now, in the past, I've seen people say, well, how the heck am I supposed to do this? This looks weird. N plus 8 and n minus 1, this looks like super hard. But once again, if you keep in mind the tricks we've looked at for how to write n plus 8 times 2, you could just put it in parentheses like this. There we go. You could say n plus 8, all of that times 2. So I can write 2 times n plus 8, just like this. Bring down my equal sign, and then I can say 5 times, and I really don't even need parentheses there. I say 5 times n minus 1, and I can put that in parentheses. So now you can see it's the same concept or process. We're just going to have to distribute twice here, which is totally fine. If you can distribute once, basically you can distribute twice. So this would give us 2n plus 16 equals 5n minus 5. Now, the only added step that we need to do here is we have variables on two sides. We just need to make sure we put the variable on one side. So we need to move this 5n by subtracting 5n. So now we would end up with negative 3n plus 16 equals negative 5. And I'll actually finish this over here. Now, if this part's making you struggle a little bit, go watch the video I uploaded on multi-step equations with the variable on both sides, and that'll be a good recap for you on this type of problem. All right, so now negative 3n plus 16 equals negative 5. So now this is just a two-step equation. So we can subtract 16, Negative 3n equals negative 21. All right, so now we can divide by negative 3, and n is going to be equal to 7. All right, so once again, a proportion requires us to cross multiply. That's kind of the big idea of this video. Well, it's not really kind of, it is the big idea of this video. Now, with any of this solving, like the distributing or the putting one variable on one side or the two-step equation, if any of that's confusing, I have several other videos that go through all of those topics. So I would go watch those because you pretty much need those in order to solve any of these proportion problems. But once again, the big idea is cross multiply.